And now back to Matthew Hatfield and the evil basketball coach. Blast you, Ed Young!
And we welcome you back here to 757 Saturday Sports Talk. He enjoys the intro there of Stewie from Family Guy with the evil basketball coach, Ed Young. I'm Matt Hatfield. We have a special guest with us from Irish Breakdown, Bryan Driskell. Yeah, we got Stewie to do this for us, Bryan.
Coach has always been so kind to me. I couldn't believe they called him an evil basketball coach in there.
Bryan, that's just Matt's made up stuff. He tries to make me out as a bad dude. I'm well liked, well accepted. I do speak my mind sometimes, and the people that are evil themselves don't like me around because I speak truth. I would never do that to you. That's why I don't know why I keep working with this dude, because when we have games against other people, like trivia games, he gives them the answers ahead of time. He gives them clues. Me, I got like half a second to answer. He hits the buzzer, wrong. And then, he gives everybody else the answer. So I'm enduring a lot with him, but I feel it's my place to do this because I can go to heaven when I'm done, because I sure as hell been in hell with him.
Wow. He's upset from last night's Yankees loss on the walk.
Oh, it's tough.
I get that.
Freeman. But here's also what he did, Bryan. So we walk out of a place that had a lot of televisions, a sports place that people put wagers on games. Neither I nor Ed did on any football games that night. But we're walking out the night that Notre Dame beat Texas A&M 23-13, and the schedule comes on the TVs. He goes win. They're going to run the table, and I knew right then and there it was oh no. Now they lost to Northern Illinois by 2 in a shocking upset. Responded, beat Purdue pretty big. Didn't look great against Miami of Ohio, but here they are starting to get it together offensively. They had a couple injuries on defense. Big spotlight game today against Navy. Is it upset alert for Ed and the Irish here, or do you think they'll be all right in this game? What's your big picture feel of the team in this matchup today?
I mean, it's an upset alert from the standpoint of you're going away from home to play a good football team, right? Like anytime you're going away, I mean, especially from what we've seen this season. I mean, Bama's lost to Vanderbilt. You look at Tennessee getting beat by Arkansas. This has been one of those weird years where you have to be ready for everybody. The thing about Notre Dame is the injuries that they've had have on defense have hurt them clearly, or to a degree, I should say, and could hurt them in future games. But it's a great cover corner in Benjamin Morrison. It's your two best pass rushers in Jordan Botelho and Boubacar Traore. This isn't necessarily one of those games where you're going to feel that sting quite as much, but it really comes down to the Notre Dame offense and what do we see from them today. I think the Notre Dame defense can do enough to keep Navy's points down. This is a very good Navy team. I know that there's a lot of people say, well, Army and Navy haven't played anybody. And that's definitely true for Army. And Navy hasn't played very many good teams. But that win over Memphis was a very good win. And if it wasn't for Navy beating Memphis that day, Memphis would be probably a top 15 team right now and would be the number one team for the group of 5, the championship team that can, of the group of 5, to be in the college football playoff. So this is a much improved Navy team, very different looking Navy team this year on offense. And a team that Notre Dame certainly has to take seriously. It's one of the 3 best teams they've played so far this season, and certainly the most unique test for the Notre Dame defense. But Notre Dame's playing really good football right now. And, you talk about not playing well against Miami of Ohio, and they didn't, but they won by 25. You talk about Notre Dame didn't necessarily play great against Georgia Tech and won by 18, and that included a garbage touchdown at the end of the game. And I was talking with a friend of mine last night, and it kind of hit me like, these are games that Notre Dame used to have as dogfights in the past, where they didn't play well, they didn't bring their A game, they didn't even really bring their B game, and they'd be down to the wire games. And the reason they're not right now is because of what we've seen from a recruiting standpoint from Marcus Freeman. This is just such an incredibly talented football team that they're able to lose guys and just put another kid in that's really talented himself. And in the past, you'd lose a really good player, and you're putting in somebody you're like, oh, I don't know how that's going to go. And I think that certainly helped this football team out a bunch.
One more quick question before I let Ed jump in here with you on the Irish, and we'll also cover some other topics in the world of college football, some big games across the landscape. And there's been some exciting action with this new college football playoff coming up in 12 teams still alive. In the past, that loss to NIU would have probably been a death knell for them. Instead, Notre Dame is still very much alive for it. I've heard the conversation, best safety in the country. Xavier Watts from Notre Dame is in that conversation. I know Caleb Downs at Ohio State is in that conversation as well. You get to watch him closely and break down film. What's your view of him? Is he the best safety in the country, and just how special is he now? Can he be?
Well, we're talking about best safety in college football, right? Not best NFL prospect at safety. And I think if you're talking about just the best safety, snap after snap, impact on the game, I do think Xavier Watts is the best safety in college football. You know, there are talented players. You mentioned Caleb Downs, Malachi Starks. George is a very talented player. Those guys are both going to be picked way higher in the NFL draft than Xavier Watts. But he, as a college football player, is an elite player. He's incredibly instinctive. He's really smart. He's always around the football. He's improved his tackling. His coverage has been outstanding this season. And teams don't even throw at him that much, and he still has, you know, three interceptions on the season, 2 interceptions on the season. Just an outstanding player, captain on the back end of the defense. And look, Notre Dame's pass defense has been truly elite all season, despite the fact they're missing their 2 best pass rushers. They've had a great performance against Georgia Tech this past weekend, despite not having their All-American cornerback in Benjamin Morrison. And a big part of it is Xavier Watts, not just as a playmaker, guys. He's obviously a playmaker. He's around the ball in the run game. He drives on routes, takes away the middle of the field. He can intercept passes down the field. But he's also a great leader. And they have a very young secondary. They start 2 true sophomores and a true freshman around him, and his ability to make sure everybody's lined up, make sure everybody's on the same page and where they need to be is incredibly important. And I should also mention they play 2 sophomores and a true freshman in front of them at linebacker as well. That leadership has been what's been truly invaluable for Xavier this season, on top of him being a playmaker.
Bryan, I want to look at assess the quarterback situation with Notre Dame. I know last couple of years they've been into the transfer portal, pulling somebody out that's got notoriety. In terms of how this year has gone for them, how do you think what they've done at quarterback is it going to be even more brighter for them? Is it not gone the way they expected? And assess that from the quarterback standpoint.
Well, going to the portal the last 2 years was a necessary evil. When you look at just how disappointing, I guess, is a nice way of putting it. I'll be nice since we're getting close to kickoff. I'm going to be in a good mood. Nice. It's disappointing quarterback recruiting to where people say, Sam Hartman was disappointing last season. I'm like, okay, he wasn't as good as we hoped he would be. He wasn't nearly as productive as he was at Wake Forest. There's no debating that. But it would have been worse if he wasn't there. Same thing with Riley Leonard this season. And with him, I think not being here for the spring really hurt Riley, and he played poorly at points early in the season. I thought he played well against Texas A&M, but he did not play well at all against Northern Illinois. He ran very well against Purdue, but had some big misses in the throwing game. Same thing with Miami of Ohio. But he's gotten better and better each week as he's gotten more time in the system, more time with the players. And I say when you look at the injuries on the offensive line, they're down 3 starters on the offensive line. The pass protection has not been great for most of the season. Riley Leonard's bailed them out plenty of times, a ton of times this season, with his ability to escape the pocket, make defenders miss, and get outside and turn what should be sacks into positives. And that's something that they've needed with everything that's happened. So, and again, it was another necessary evil. Your young quarterbacks just weren't quite ready to take the reins in there, in my opinion, mainly in Notre Dame's opinion. And having a guy like Riley Leonard has helped your football team, even though he hasn't played as well as you hoped he would play. His skill set has helped. They don't beat Texas A&M on the road if Riley Leonard's not their quarterback and one of the young guys is. I don't think that they do. Maybe the next week they go beat Northern Illinois. Who knows? Because he got hurt in that game and wasn't himself. But I don't think we're sitting here with Notre Dame at 6-1 and competing for a playoff spot. Now, moving forward, I think to your point, Coach, is are they going to have to keep doing this? I don't think so. When you look at, obviously, Steve Angeli's their backup. He's a solid player. But when you look at the 2 younger kids on the roster, redshirt freshman Kenny Minchie, who has incredible arm talent, and then freshman CJ Carr, who has a chance to be really special. Lloyd Carr's grandson, by the way, is potentially the future quarterback at the University of Notre Dame, which I always find fascinating. But it's funny, guys. I'll be at practice, and you'll have the 2 veterans, Steve Angeli and Riley Leonard, down there throwing to Steve Angeli and CJ Carr, as they're doing pregame warmups or pre-practice warmups, and then you've got CJ and Kenny down here, and we're sitting there at practice in fall camp, and I look over at a friend of mine, and I'm like, that ball looks a whole lot different going that way than it does coming this way with those 2 kids, because they have special arm talent, and they're more passers first, and they're both good athletes, but they're passers first. And so the future is bright at quarterback. It's just, will the staff be willing next season to go with a younger player that doesn't have experience, knowing that he's going to have to take some lumps early? I think that they will. According to my sources, I think that if Notre Dame goes to the portal at quarterback, it's more to get a depth guy if somebody leaves. But I think they're at the point now with the development these kids have had this fall that they believe they're ready to kind of let those 3 young players battle. They just flipped a quarterback commit from Clemson in the 25 class to give them another a kid for next year, Blake Hebert from Connecticut. And so they'll have a really talented depth chart. I think now they're finally ready, Coach, to say, hey, listen, we've recruited these kids. We've developed them enough. Let's let these kids battle, and we can finally get some continuity on offense.
Well, Bryan, you kind of hit my next question. I was going to say, in terms of, is this a trend we're going to see where they're going to look to take a veteran from somewhere to keep it going? Because in the era of transfer portal, teams kind of do that. It's like the minor league. They'll go there, pull kid. Okay, this guy will do it. But you're feeling that the younger guys, if they give them the shot, and then of course the other thing you have to keep adding, I think you did, if they stay.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you see in the transfer portal era, if you're even a second string guy, you get antsy where you probably got somebody saying, if you were over here, you wouldn't be no second. And guys are jumping like crazy. And if you're a third guy who's got talent, it's almost a given. You're out. You're going to be gone because of the next issue, NIL money, that somebody may say, well, we know we can give you more money. Do you see that as an issue with a program like Notre Dame? Because some like Clemson, Dabo's saying, we don't need a portal. Well, I kind of think you do.
I think Notre Dame's approach to the portal has been smart, because you look at these teams like Louisville and Florida State and USC that one year the portal, Michigan State, remember back in 2021, went to the portal and rebuilt their roster and came out, had a great year, and then they lost all those guys. They tried to do it again, and the next year they were terrible because, Florida State, again, they go through the portal. They have 2 great years in a row with a lot of portal kids. They go 10-3, then they go 13-1, and now they got to rebuild their roster with the portal, and you don't have the same kind of buy-in. You don't have the same kind of players, and they're a disaster this season. Marcus Freeman's approach, and then obviously what he's dictated to Chad Bowden, their general manager, and the assistant coaches, is, listen, we'll go to the portal when we need to go to the portal. And when you talk about kind of fixing holes in the roster, they've needed obviously portal guys on the edge the last couple of years. They're recruiting to the point where they hope they don't have to do that next year. Yeah, they've obviously went to the portal at safety last year, and the last 2 years, I should say. This year they went to the portal one more time for a safety, and they're hoping that with the young players they've recruited, they don't have to do that again. So it's kind of like they want to build from high school recruiting, because they want to have guys that have been in the system 2, 3, 4 years. That's, I still think, the best way to build your program, and then plug some holes at different spots through the portal. That's what they've done so far. And talking to the people I talk to around the program, they don't want to have to do that every year. They want their portal classes to be smaller and smaller and smaller. And at times you're going to go to the portal to replace a guy that you lost in the portal. And especially when you go look at like depth of quarterback. But here's one unique thing about Notre Dame, Coach, which I have found fascinating the last 2 years as this portal thing has opened up. We've seen a lot of kids at Notre Dame that are older players that are a season away from graduating from Notre Dame, take backup roles and say, hey, look, I'm not happy about it, but I'm going to stay through this thing and get my degree, and then I still have a couple years to play because I redshirted. And that's something that has helped Notre Dame keep guys a little bit longer, is when you're going into your junior year at Notre Dame and you're thinking, I just went through 2 years at Notre Dame, I can graduate in a year. Yeah, I'd like to go somewhere else, but I came here to get that degree from the University of Notre Dame. That certainly helped them a lot as well in some of the retention that they've had.
I know our time is limited with you because the game is getting ready to kick off at 12 noon Eastern. We're joined by Bryan Driskell of Irish Breakdown. Check out his work. He also does some stuff for Athlon Sports. Got a preview up there on the SEC matchup today with LSU and Texas A&M. Our guest here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk on CoVA Sports TV. The Irish favored today by 14 against the Midshipmen, who have a Norfolk native on their team, and Maury high grad Deshaun Peel, who became just a second AAC
really
player
good player.
Oh, he is second AAC
really
player ever, Bryan, to get 2 pick sixes in a game. And he's the AAC Defensive Player of the Week. So my question on that is, we've had some storylines: Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, Oregon, Tennessee, Bama. Some big games so far. Certainly, Boise last night took center stage with Ashton Genty, maybe a Heisman candidate. They hold on and beat UNLV. Had the one close loss to Oregon. Colorado is a story always with Dion and Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter. My thought on this Navy-Army situation, which they'll meet that big game end of the year. And it's one of our buy or sell questions coming up. Will Army or Navy make the 12-team college football playoff in your eyes, yes or no? And does today's outcome have a lot of bearing in that in your eyes for Navy?
I think Navy has a much better shot at that than Army does, assuming they both lose to Notre Dame. I think Navy has a better shot because Navy's going to have that win over Memphis. That's the big one, because the committee has always looked at it like, well, they'll have a great loss to Notre Dame, assuming, let's say Navy battles Notre Dame for 4 quarters and it's a close game and all that. They'll have a much better shot than Army, even if it's also a close game, because Navy can point to and say, hey, listen, we beat Tulane, who's a good football team this year. We beat Memphis, who's a really good football team this year. Where Army's going to look at it and say, we beat East Carolina, who fired their coach the next week. That's literally the best win that Army has. Now, Army's doing a great job this year. I'm not trying to take anything away from what Coach Monken has done. It's just the committee has always valued who you beat. It's like, well, Notre Dame won't get in because they lost to Northern Illinois. And I'm like, well, maybe that could happen. But the reality is they're going to look at Notre Dame's resume and be like, beat Texas A&M on the road. You beat Louisville. You beat Army. You beat Navy, who are ranked teams. You went on the road, beat USC. They're going to care. They care a lot more about who you beat than who you lost to, where the AP voters tend to obsess over, who lost and those, the reactionary of the last week or two, which is why I'm glad they don't have a say in who's going to be in it or not anymore. But Navy will be sitting there at would be 11-1. Right, because they'll be 10-1 going into the AAC championship game, whether it's a rematch against Memphis or whether they're playing Army. And if they come out of that with a win, they're now 11-1. They will then make the decision on who gets into the playoff before Army and Navy play the next game, which could be a rematch between Army and Navy, which is crazy. But I think Navy has the better chance simply because of the overall resume.
And last one as we let you roll here. Best game today besides Notre Dame Navy, if you took out the equation in your eyes, is it LSU, Texas A&M, or somebody else?
Big time. I mean, because you're talking about there's 2 undefeated teams left in the SEC as far as in-league play.
Right.
There's nobody in the SEC that's undefeated. Like, they've all got a loss. But in SEC play, these are the last 2 undefeated teams in league play. And when you look at their schedules, the winner of this game has a really favorable schedule. Not that they don't have games they can lose, but they don't have like Georgia and Ole Miss and games like that coming down the pike. A&M's got Texas. That's the biggest game they have left. And LSU's biggest game, I believe, is, Florida and Oklahoma. Are their 2 biggest games. So the winner of this game has a really clear path, or at least a very manageable path, where A&M can still go lose to Texas and still potentially be in the SEC title game, because their only loss was a non-conference, because both LSU and Texas A&M both have a loss, but they were both non-conference way back in week 1. And so both teams are trying to prove something too, Matt. I think this is a game where LSU's trying to show like, hey, we're a legit team. We're a better all-around team. Their offense isn't nearly as good as it was last year. Their defense is much better. A&M's is trying to kind of gain some credibility. Yes, they beat some decent teams, but they still have that Notre Dame loss. This is the kind of win that can say, hey, look, you beat LSU. This is that kind of big moment. And the home team has won, I think, the last 7 of these games. So can LSU finally break that streak a little bit and go on the road and win that game? It's going to be a great battle. And then, of course, there's a storyline, Brian Kelly and his former defensive coordinator. Yeah. Because Mike Elko played a big role in helping turn that Notre Dame program around, not just the job he did in 2017, but he brought Clark Lee with him, who then took over for him as defensive coordinator when he left to go to Texas A&M. So it's a fascinating storyline, and I think it's going to be a great football game. I really believe that it will be.
So a great point by you. And LSU gets the luxury. Now they get to host Bama in Baton Rouge as opposed to going to Tuscaloosa. That'll help them as well. A great insight.
I forgot about the Bama game.
Yeah. But still, they get to host them in Baton Rouge as opposed to going to Tuscaloosa, which helps them there. Great insight as always. Check them out. They can find your work, irishbreakdown.com. Where else can they find your stuff?
Yep, irishbreakdown.com. If you go to our YouTube, go to YouTube or any podcast platform you listen to, you type in Irish Breakdown. We have a YouTube channel. We go live every day, Monday to Friday. We also do a live post-game show that you can find Sunday night. We do a live, another kind of a recap from the game when we dive into the film. So you can definitely find us there. So just type in Irish Breakdown in YouTube. If you go to your podcast platform, Irish Breakdown, you'll see this IB logo right here. You got it right there. And then, of course, irishbreakdown.com. And then from there, you can also find out about our premium board, where we give some stuff that's only for the premium members, some intel and some breakdowns, some all 22 breakdowns just for those folks.
There you go. You'll get Ed to subscribe. He's going to do it on YouTube and all
over the web. Come on. You got to subscribe, Coach. You'll love it. You'll love it.
Anything dealing with Irish, I got to know. And Brian,
I'm a former coach too, Coach. So I mean, we get the analytical stuff. We don't just give you the fluffy, what everybody else is talking about. We really dive into it. So I think you'd like it, Coach.
You gotta love it.
I like that. I like that. I gotta look.
Hey, we'll get you back on. Always a pleasure, Brian. Thanks so much. Enjoy the game today, and we'll talk down the road.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
That's Bryan Driskell, Irish Breakdown. He does a fantastic job. We got buy or sell coming your way in NFL picks right here on CoVA Sports TV. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, whether you're watching on Apple, Spotify, or listening on Apple, Spotify, watching on IG, X, Twitter, Facebook, VirginiaPreps.com. We thank you.